Hey there guys, it's Metro, and hopefully by now you have seen the brief stream I did this week on the new Season 4 affix, Corrupted. We talked a lot about the general stuff, but in this video we want to talk about the very specific stuff, specifically about where the actual portals, the generals, etc., lieutenants, whatever they're called, are going to be placed, and why that could be a problem or a good thing, a bad thing, blah, blah, blah. So the main thoughts that roll through my head immediately are these going to change week to week? You know, we saw a lot of variance with the first season affix. We saw a lot of variance with the third season affix. And that is a big part of what's going into the mentality of making this affix, I have to imagine. Now, we don't know if the portals themselves are going to change, but I propose that likely what happens is the actual placement of the portals doesn't change, but the mob that's at these portals changes, because there 4 of them are very different. I already explained this in another video, so you should check that out if you haven't seen it, or in the stream more so. But yeah, there's definitely a big difference between the 4 mobs. So having them in different spots, even if they're in the exact same spot every dungeon, is actually a pretty big deal, because it might change the way you do the route week to week. So in this dungeon, we're going to check out all, I guess, 12 now Mythic Plus dungeons. We're going to take a look at where these are located, and then this can serve as potentially a tool in the future. If they do change, then we'll know. You guys will know probably a week from now. But either way, we'll talk about why each one is relevant and what it's going to look like. So let's get right to it. All right, so we're starting out with the Tal'Dazar, of course, and this one has probably, I think this is a great example of what you might see in this season. Okay, so we have 4 spires every week, and 3 of them are all over the place, effectively, places that you wouldn't normally go through. And, you know, you're going to obviously go one way or the other. I don't think anybody, some people do solely go left nowadays, but pretty much I'm always going to the right, okay? So the only one I'm actually going to pass by, like, naturally, is going to be this one. The Entropic one is the one that summons the Fear ad as well, which is commonly considered the worst one to have with the boss at the end. So we're going to get that one out of the way without even really trying. But the other 3 are well out of the way. To get the Cursed Spire, which I believe, let's see, the Cursed one is the Voidweaver Malthier, which is the interruptible spider one. That one is pretty much, you know, you're going to have to go left, which I know some people do go left anyway to get count now, the way they do the dungeon. But then the Brutal Spire, which is the tank one, that one is in the dead center of the room, which means that you're going to have to pull the giant pack of trash to get to it. And then the other one, the Defiled Spire, this is the one with the blob who does the mind flay and drops the stuff on the ground. This one is to the left of Vol'kal, right? To the other side of Vol'kal, meaning you'd have to pull at least 1 more extra trash bag just to get there. So realistically, if we were doing a Tal this week, I mean, I would probably want to skip 3 of them and fight them at the last boss. But is that realistic? I think the answer is probably no. We don't know exactly how, if they're going to scale with Tyrannical when you fight the last boss and maybe Fortified when you're not fighting them with the boss. I'm not really sure. But, you know, one way or the other, it's going to make us to fight even 2 out of the 3. It's going to make us fight a completely different route just to get to that point. And no matter what, even if these 4 were in different orders, you know, if the Defiled was here and the Brutal was here, blah, 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 we still are going to have to completely change our route just to get there. And realistically, there's just not enough count to actually skip this much trash in this dungeon. So that's a Tal. You can actually see it, and I'll just show it real quick just for completion's sake. You can see it right in the middle, and actually it's the pack padding. Yeah, the Pat is still patrolling, so I guess it is possible to get up there. The question is maybe you could stealth up to it. I don't know if that's possible, but it might be possible to get this without aggroing the middle pack. This, obviously, no way you're not aggroing that pack. This one's right here, and then you can't really see it, but the other one's over there. So King's Rest is actually the one dungeon that we did do on stream on a proper key with a full group of 5 people. And, well, I think this one's probably one of the most interesting setups here possible. So we're actually talking about the possibility of them putting these obelisks in areas that you wouldn't normally go to, like we saw in some of the other dungeons. But imagine if there was an obelisk over here to the right. Like, I think a lot of people don't even know that there is a little area over here to the right. There's mobs. There's one mob here, and then you could kind of jump over these roots. But anyway, this is actually a perfect solution to what I believe is wrong with King's Rest. You could do the rogue skip without a rogue. You know, a lot of people want to skip these 2 mobs and then skip the kind of the guardian here on the way to Machimba. But now you can do it without a rogue. take the first Spire. It's right after. You could skip the 2 guarding golems here. You just got to kill the pack of trash that's guarding, like the fear mobs, whatever those ones that you can just purge. You kill those, then you take the brutal Spire, drag the mob into the room with Golden Serpent, kill it, light the gong up, hit all the trash for death, and then kill the Golden Serpent, move on. Kill the gauntlet in here. You have to do the gauntlet. You cannot skip this, by the way. We tried this. The gate is closed if you're in the other realm still. You still have to do this to get there. And then, you could do this. You kill the mob, skip this guy, bring the portal into this room, get into Machimbo, clear his room out, and then move on. But the big problem here, or the thing that's very interesting, is that there's 2 directly next to each other. So the tank one's the early one. The fear one is that one. And then the other 2 are here. But the thing that makes me think here is you might want to kill one, all right? So you're going to kill both of them maybe just to say, but one way or the other. Basically, what you might want to do is have one left. So you do all the trash down here. You're not really going to be able to skip the start and anything here. But if you want to, you could do that, I guess, realistically. You could skip here too. But anyway, you're going to do that, kill the boss, and then you might come back and get the other one and use it to skip Zool. Is it possible? I don't know. Assuming that the gate is still closed, I don't know how that would even work. But there has been talk about people skipping Zool anyway, so I don't know. Regardless, that's the 4 locations. In terms of difficulty, none of them really are, I wouldn't even say like this is the major concern with King's Rest. For me, the major concern is actually using this to skip very, problematic trash. I think we're going to see that in a couple dungeons. Now, Temple of Sathralis is probably the most interesting one out of all of these because this is a dungeon that, if you've done recently, it's pretty much impossible to be on your count in this dungeon without a serious amount of effort. And there's a lot of really important ways that you could maximize that effort. And these are going to make it a lot easier. So this is another one where I don't even think the order matters. As long as they're actually here, they're going to be very, very useful for skipping. We have one right at the start, which is perfect. You would kill the first pack a lot of times anyway, and then shroud the next 2, and then kill the ones down at the stairs here, and then fight the boss. You can now do that again without a rogue. Absolutely huge. Being able to pull that off is really nice. And then the next one is right before you enter that long winding hallway on the way to Mythic, and it's the same thing. You might often skip a single pack there just because Shroud would be back up and you will not need the count anyway. So you can do the exact same thing there. That's the tank one that time. Then the Galvas one is probably not going to get any use. I mean, there's absolutely no use for that. You're not going to be able to skip anything anyway. You cannot, I don't think anyway. I don't think you can skip Galvas, so I don't see why you would do that. Might be a situation where you might use it and come back, but it is the fear one, so you're probably going to want to get this one out of the way anyway, regardless. Having the fear on the last boss of Sathralis might not be something you want to do, especially if it's going to be on the healer. Oops. And then you go, the final one is just in the middle of the room, and that's the cursed one. So one of the easier ones, obviously. I definitely think, you know, if you could leave the cursed one up, since it's just purely interruptible, right? That's the one, right? Purely interruptible one. You probably want to do that. You know what I mean? Leave that one up. Don't even touch that one. But if you want to, you could also skip here as well, which is another thing a lot of people do. But probably what I would do is I'd probably just, you know, skip it the old way, use a rogue, and just leave that one up. Because you'd have to come back and get it. The problem with it is it looks to be in the middle of the snake room, and I can't test that for sure because I'd have to do the whole dungeon, but pretty confident in saying that it's going to be difficult to get out of combat there. You might end up fighting some mobs along the way that you're not going to want to do that with. So yeah, probably just skip that one and then even Shroud or Invispot the old way. And then what you do at that point is you kill the boss and then get the trash. And then at the end of the boss, it gives you a buff. So you could actually use that buff to kill, maybe even the add too. But yeah, Sathralis is probably the most, the highest impact because this dungeon just absolutely is really a pain. So now Urg'roth's an interesting one because this one is probably one that I think people are going to use to actually skip and change the way they do the dungeon just so they can get more. Now I've seen a couple people talk about the potential of fighting 2+ at the last boss, and whether or not you think that's scary or not, I don't know. We'll figure that out once the season actually starts. But for me, I'm going into approaching this as saying you definitely do not want to fight more than one of these mobs with the last boss. It's just going to make the last boss so much harder and longer. So what I think you might do here is you might have to pull these ticks and then use this first one. You could skip to the boss, which is something a lot of people do anyway with Rogue. Then you might kill the second one. You probably won't even skip anything there. You just kill it since it's the tank one. Definitely, I'm pretty sure you definitely don't want that one at the last boss. That one seems like probably the worst one overall for the last boss. Kill that one and then just come back out. And then there's 2 here. So at this point, since we skipped early on, we might use one to skip to the other or something like that. And maybe even try to get all 4. But if not, you can literally just pull this one and just ignore this one. The Entropic one is the fear one, though. So, you know, again, this is the dangerous one. It's not super dangerous, but, you know, having more than one of them up, especially with the fear one, is probably going to result in absolute catastrophe. So what I might do is I might actually use that. You know, you might use that one, kill it, bring it over here, kill it here, I mean, then come out, whatever is near it, there might be one mob near it, kill that mob, and then go in, and then go back to the other side and continue, or you know, go back to where you want to end up and finish the dungeon that way. So that might actually result in skipping all of the trash around this area if you do it that way. I think there's going to be a lot of crazy tactics being used for this situation. So a pretty interesting one. But again, the Entropic being in the worst possible spot for that one is probably the first dungeon we looked at today, where I think you are definitely going to want to go out of your way to make sure that you set yourself up for the last boss to be as comfortable as possible. Because, you know, there's nothing that's worse than, you know, getting the last boss and wiping. So I would rather play it safe than sorry, even if it meant kind of taking your time there. So that's Underrot. Motherlode's uniquely interesting as well, because a lot of people do these really obtuse double death skips and odd things in this dungeon because they think the start of the dungeon's trash is just twice as valuable as the end of the dungeon's trash. And I'm not here to debate that today, but I am here to say I am a lot more interested in doing that now that we don't actually have to die twice. This is making it a lot easier based on these current positions, and it actually lines up almost perfectly. So you're going to have a brutal spire right out of the gate on the left side, which normally if I was doing my old route, I wouldn't even touch. I wouldn't come near it. But I think it's going to be a lot better to do this new, you know, this with the new affix. You're going to want to do this double skip thing. So you can do it pretty easily. We'll just clear out everything, kind of everything at the start. We'll kill the brutal mob just because you don't want it at the end. You know, get that out of the way, get a little count from it. Clear it all out, kill the boss. This one is way out of the way. That, I mean, based on where it is on the map anyway, I could probably get there. It would take a while, but it looks way out of the way. I don't think I even considered touching that one. You know, clear out what you got to clear out here. Basically get enough count that you could do whatever you need to do to get those double skips going. And then as soon as you kill Azarok, bang a left, kill the 2 packs here that you might have to kill, and hop in and go right to Rixa. We kill Rixa, kill the 1 or 2 packs you might have to kill to get here, and then skip right to the Mogul Razdunk guy there. So that seems like the way the dungeon's going to go right now. You know what? I really like that. I think this is a genius play in this dungeon because now you could actually do this without the massive risk reward that you often see when pugging. And as long as people don't kill the ad early, that's a very real possibility. Don't forget, you got to travel a long distance with it. So as long as people don't accidentally kill it early or nobody dies to it, this is definitely the way to do it. So that's Motherlode. I think that's probably the one that has the highest potential with this this new affix. Now, Shrines, of course, another very interesting one. And I've actually taken the opportunity to clear a small amount of it here because I wanted to test exactly where these were, because these are the ones that have the potential to be make or break for keys. So the first one was the spider one, Interruptible. It was actually right at the start of the dungeon. You just cleared those kind of, you know, the Templar and the small mobs there, and then right outside the big AoE pack was the Obelisk there. So I got that, brought it all the way here, killed it right before here, and this is the last one, a Defiled one, and it is actually almost unfortunately, I don't know, I mean, this is probably the most fair way to do it. It's looks like it's going to be attached to this pack. So if you know, a lot of people skip this bridge here, but this pack is really the dangerous part. You know, a lot of times you can't skip the bridge here, even in Season 3, because of the emissary placement, but this one is a pack that, you know, if you could skip easily, you'd want to do it. So you might see people still just shrouding here anyway and avoiding this one. It is the Defiled one, so probably one of the easier ones to deal with at the end. You can actually see the brutal one. It's right after the first boss. It's right by the 2-pack, right before the big, the mini boss mob. So realistically, what I'd say you probably could do there is clear out this trash, then you come back here, get this, and use it to skip where you'd normally skip the second mini boss, right? You could skip the second mini boss with this, kill it on the other side, and then continue on with the dungeon as is. The Entropic one is there. It's kind of out of the way. You could kind of see it. It's just on the other end of this mountain, so you can't really see it too well. Let's see if we can get a little bit farther. But it's actually on the left side of the area. Yeah, you can kind of see it. It's on the left side of the area. So typically, without emissaries, a lot of people would have went to the right side and then around up into the second boss, like this way. But now a lot of people are going to the left because there's almost always an emissary right around here. Either way, it's now a lot more approachable either direction you want to go. You're probably going to clear this. I'm probably going to clear this myself. You're not going to use it to skip anything. There's not really anything to skip at this point. But yeah, I do like the fact that you could potentially use the first one maybe to skip the big water elemental as well. I don't know if I would do that if we're going to skip the end. But the fact that the end here is where it is, I think that's really nice. Now, I do want to just try something really quick. I want to see what happens if you go into the water. Because obviously you can't skip the boss. But I just want to see how this actually interacts with it. Because, you know, we couldn't go through doors. I don't know how lock-pickable doors or, you know, things that might be interactable by humans, by players, what happens there. So let's go ahead and actually jump into this water, which typically should kill you if you jump into it before you kill the first boss. And it looks like it doesn't. It's just, yeah, not even doing damage. So you're completely immune in here. I don't think there's any possible benefit to this. But just in case, that's something you might want to consider for Shrine of the Storm. Now, Whitecrest is probably the dungeon I'm looking forward to the least with this affix. I don't really understand how it would even function. In fact, some of these are already in really odd spots. So we're actually going to explore this a little bit. I took the time to kill the first one. It's just at the very top of the stairs. It was the blob one, so easy to kill, no problem. But let's go ahead and take a look through the dungeon because obviously you can't walk through the doors. The doors don't open for you automatically when you're in this realm. You still have to do the dungeon in the way the bosses and everything normally transpire. But, you know, since we're invisible, we could literally just explore the entire dungeon if we want. It doesn't look like there's anything downstairs, which I'm kind of surprised by. I definitely would like to have seen something downstairs. So here's one here. This is the fear one. So this is actually a really good one. But it's so random, this dungeon anyway, right? Ideally, if you got to the end of the dungeon and this one was the last one you might come across, that would be ideal because you'd be able to skip the downstairs entirely. You'd be able to go right down. You know, normally a lot of people will skip down there if they have too much count, which you're almost always going to have in that route. Actually, no, it'd be the other way around, right? Yeah, if you got to that one last, you're probably short on count. But either way, you might use that to your benefit. Now, that looks like there's one just in the dead center of the courtyard, which is not going to get, nobody's going to use that to skip anything, surely. Brutal Spire, that's the tank one, so you definitely want to get that one out of the way. And then the curse one is the final one, but we got to find it. I don't know where it is. Let's take a look. The fact that there's none downstairs, though, I'm kind of surprised by. Maybe this one is downstairs, actually. But we can't, yeah. Okay, I guess this one is downstairs. I don't know, it's a bit odd on the map, right? Like, I mean, it looks like it's upstairs. You go to the downstairs map, there's nothing there. So, no, that's upstairs, that's why. The cellar, either way, it's not down there. So, I think we can actually, we can't go this way. Just real quick, let's go back to the other side. I just want to see, can you actually go downstairs without killing any bosses? I'm not sure. I've never, obviously never done this. Never been in this position where I'm just roaming around the dungeon without having killed a single thing. And I'm completely invisible. I'm completely immune to everything. Let's just test this real quick, just for the sake of having it in the video. But yeah, I don't know. This dungeon, I think, has probably, it's going to be the most confusing to use well. It's already confusing to get count in here. So using it extremely well is going to be extremely confusing. I mean, the dungeon's typically on the easier side anyway, I think a lot of people think. So can we actually go down here with... No, door's closed, so yeah. All right, so that's that. Oh no, is it? It's locked. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I don't know. Can't really go down there and test it out, but for now, we'll have to say that this one I think will probably be the most confusing and the most pain in the ass one to actually maximize. But I guess if you get it at the right place at the right time, you know, especially on either side. So basically, it seems like both of these are on the way down. So that's pretty good, one way or the other. You might want to pull one, you know. But you know, the problem is, yeah, you're gonna have to pull one, right? Or leave one. I guess you leave one. Kill the two that we talked about, and then use the third one to skip, and then leave the fourth one for the last boss. That's probably what people will do. Another almost confusing one is Told to Gore. I guess I don't know what I should have expected, but yeah, if it was like that in Whitecrest, you're obviously not going to be able to figure out where it is at Told to Gore. So we had to go through it. But the first one was just right behind the first boss, and that was, let's see which one's left. Well, we can't actually see because we're inside now. So yeah, it's really confusing. I don't know why it's like this on the map. Oh yeah, it was, I don't know. The caster? The interruptible one, yeah. It was the interruptible one. It's been a while. I had to do it and then step away. But anyway, we're going to go check out where the other ones are. For some reason, they don't show up on the individual maps. I assume this is a bug, but we shouldn't have any trouble finding them, surely. I can't imagine we will anyway. It looks like they're above us one way or the other. But yeah, this is one that I don't know what we're going to do with. I feel like you're not really going to be able to use any of them to skip anything. Here's one right here. I guess you could use this one, the Defiled one, maybe to skip around the door here, which a lot of people do. So if you don't have a rogue, you can do that. Same thing with downstairs, the one I've already kind of walked by. You could easily do the same thing. Realistically, though, it's still going to be better to have a rogue because you have to walk around the whole way. That's just way slow. Skipping the mobs are not the important part. It's usually opening the doors and then cutting through the path. It's going to save that much time. But doing both is fine, and doing one of the two is fine too, I suppose. So there's that one. Let's see. Nothing up here, it looks like. That's the second one you'd run into. Entropic Spire and Brutal Spire, though, they look like they're well above, which I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to, just because we are going to have to fight Jess. Yeah, we can't actually progress without fighting Jess. Is that right? Or maybe that's wrong. Nah, that's right. Well, I don't know. So I'm assuming they're upstairs, but realistically, there's probably one at the end of the dungeon. I don't know why it doesn't show, man. So I guess, you know, if you're going to say something about this, you got to see that the map doesn't function very well. Let's see if we can go all the way back to the beginning, because it does show on that map. So Entropic is the one we just went by, right? Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, the Brutal one looks like it is outside, though. That one you could probably tell is where it's actually supposed to be on the map. And the other one's probably just above. Maybe it's right before the third door that you might open and then skip, like you used to in Season 2. A lot of times you don't do that anymore because they changed the count variance in this dungeon substantially in Season 3. I don't think that's changing again in Season 4. But this one looks like it's probably, what's that, like right before the last boss? Or is that... I think that's probably right before last boss. I think you probably come up this way. I don't know, though. It's hard to tell. But anyway, that's total Gore. It's a miasma of mess anyway, like always. So I'm never expecting much out of these pillars in this one. But, you know, I'm sure there's going to be some use. If only to skip the doors, you know, if you don't need a rogue, I guess that's valuable. So Siege of Brawl is probably also the one with pretty limited usage. I can't really think of anything that's immediately going to stand out to me. The first one I did skip, or I did pull just to see it, and it's the tank one. And it's not too bad of a start, obviously, regardless. It's not in a great spot. I mean, you're not really going to be able to use it to skip anything. Not a lot of trash in this dungeon that you can skip. There is, you know, 1 or 2 packs that you might take on, especially on a teaming week, you might use something. But right out of the gate like that, where it's basically you get through the first foyer there as a horde, and there's you know, those stairs that go up right there. There's one of the obelisks, so I can't really see using that. And then, you know, the second one is right after the second boss as well. I have seen some success, people using a skip maybe to get past some of this trash. But the problem is here, this one is on the opposite side of the pack that you might skip. So the only thing I could think of is you'd come up here, do this stuff with the spotter, then come back, get this, skip to the boss, which I mean, at that point you're only skipping 1 pack, so is it worth going all the way back for it? Then just leave the Defiled one and then come forward and do the rest. Like, you know, this one here, you're not, that I don't know exactly where that is, but there's no way that that's gonna help. Actually, I don't know, man. And maybe it depends on what, I wish we can test it out, but I'd have to do all the bosses. It depends on what side of the gate it's on. If it's on this boss side of the gate, it's useless, terrible, right? But if it's on this boss side of the gate, then you might be able to actually use it to skip the dangerous pack here, which I think, I mean, it's hard to tell, right? Because it looks like it's right on top of the gate. So it could be either side, but I don't know. At this point, they're just so far away from where the skips are. Like, you know, some of the other dungeons, like we're about to do Freehold, that's pretty obvious. It's used, you know, what you're going to use it for. This one is just like, you might use it, so. Now, Freehold's really the bread and butter example of why this is going to be an awesome season, and really bread and butter example of why Freehold is the best dungeon in the game. But you get one right out of the gate, so that means you can skip all of this stuff This week, at least, it's the blob one. Very easy to kill. Nothing problematic there at all. It's just right down here as well, so you literally don't even have to fight anything. You can just bang a left here, come out of the right. You know, as soon as you jump over here, you make it. You don't have to aggro any of that trash. Kill it, and then mount up. You know, you could still mount up in here, which is a big deal. Probably people didn't think about that. But let's go ahead and look at the other two, because these are actually, this one I tested on stream, and it was the prototype for what the end of the dungeon's going to look like. And this is actually going to be a bigger problem than people might think. So typically, you know, you kill the last boss of the dungeon last in most dungeons, right? That's 9 times out of 10, you're killing the last boss of a dungeon last. But in this dungeon, almost always people don't do that. They almost always go to Harlan first. Now, I don't know if that's going to be a problem or not, but one way or the other, you know, you just saw that. There was the Entropic one we just rode by. It's just in the middle there. You're going to want to probably clear that one out. It's not going to help you skip anything. You can't do the dog in this realm. Assumingly, you won't be able to do either the other 2 events in this realm. You're not really going to skip anything there, but it's probably a good idea to clear that thing out on a serious key. And then, again, you might run into a problem here because the cursed spire is actually blocking, or is attached to a pack that nobody really ever pulls. It could be worse. It could be right here, but it's here. So, you know, sometimes you might pull this pack, and I do think there will be an adjustment of count to facilitate pulling this spire, because you definitely want to get this out of the way. If you're going to fight this boss third, you have no real chance of getting this one. Like, that's out of the question. You're not going to get that one. But it's actually pretty good because it's the brutal one. So having that one alone with this boss, who doesn't do very much tank damage at all, it's actually perfect. I think that's the way to do it. So I think you'll probably start, you know, skip whatever, blah, blah, blah. Get up to here. Break this one. You know, you're not going to skip the whole thing, but, you know, skip whatever you got to skip. Do the first boss. Get to here. Break this one out. Just kill the guy. Then go do Harlan third still. You'll have to kill that pack and kill the cursed one there. You could even maybe use it so you drag it over here. That actually might not be that bad of an idea. And, you know, maybe there's even some shenanigans that you could pull off where you might get this one and pull this one over here somehow. And then, I don't know, like use this portal to get back to the end point of this portal. So you're in here without having to fight anything that you didn't want to fight. And then just get the rest of the count there. Probably not optional, as you're going to have a lot of count needed at that point. But still, I do like showing this off because this is what it looks like. If you got here without killing all 4, there would be a 4th one right there. So this is actually the 3. When you pull Harlan, he will engage, and these 3 obelisks will spawn the 3 respective mobs that you haven't killed. So that's what it looks like. So then you might go, at that point, you're done, right? Like this isn't even here anymore. Right, I think this is the only dungeon in the game where you could actually do this, right? Where you could feasibly do this before the final boss. So what happens when you kill Harlan? Does this just go away? It doesn't really matter. It's not like you would click it a second time, but yeah, that's just how it works. So Freehold's a pretty good example of why this affix might be pretty cool. Sadly, all bets are off in the Mechagon dungeons. We're taking a look at the upper Mechagon, whatever you want to call that first. But as you'll notice, the same issue is present with the map. Just a bug on the PTR, really. It just doesn't actually show on the proper levels of the map, which isn't that big of a deal in, say, Gore or Waycrest, but it's absolutely unusable in this version because that is not even a part of the game that you're playing currently. So, yeah, where we're at currently, it doesn't show it. But I found the first one. It was the blob one. And it can probably be used to skip this stuff. I don't know. I haven't done this yet, so it's probably silly to even talk about this dungeon in this video. But realistically, if it's anything like Upper Carrier, there's just not going to be anything you can skip in this dungeon. So, I don't know. These are the ones I'm worried about. I did hear that you can use it to skip the entire Gauntlet event, whatever that thing is, the Steam vent thing. You could use that to actually skip the entire Steam vent. There's one right in front of that, but I don't actually know where the other ones are, but either way, it doesn't really matter. I think you're gonna have to go in and clear all 4 of them. That last boss is just way too complicated and way too long, frankly, to actually fight anything else with it, probably. And more importantly, there's just nothing you could skip. So you're just gonna end up either ignoring all 4 of them or killing all 4 of them. Realistically, you'll probably use the one to skip the Steam vents, but also can't solo this boss. Tried it. And he accidentally, or he doesn't accidentally do anything, but he actually puts a debuff on you that just stacks up infinitely and needs to be dispelled by the healer. which I don't have. So we will take a look at lower Kara, or whatever you're, not lower Kara, lower Mechagon, whatever you want to call that. And finally, lower Mecha, I don't know what to call it. It's obviously not what it's called. It's called Junkyard or Workshop. Junkyard being this one, Workshop being the previous one. And this one actually works. The map actually functions on this one. And all I can say is I did test this a little bit on the stream, and frankly, I think this is another one where you don't need these to skip anything. So I'm not really sure why, what the function of them would be. I don't think the affix works very well when you're not actually going to use them for anything. Now, that one right there might be useful. It depends on the count. I don't know anything about this dungeon again, so I really shouldn't even be commenting on this, but it depends on the count. There are some mobs, but watch, you could actually skip all of this without even having, like, a vast majority of the count can just be skipped without even needing any of this stuff. You know what I mean? Like I can just ride by here, skip that mob there. I could go in the back way here instead of going through those mobs there. I could actually pull this pack here. I could pull this pack out. The robot things that buff you are still here as well. So I don't know. It just depends on how count's going to work here. Obviously, nobody probably really knows that yet. I mean, maybe a couple people have tested it, but some of the odd stuff here is this. This is the stuff that I'm worried about. I don't know if I could actually get there without aggroing stuff, but no, definitely not there. But there's one that's just literally like nowhere near where you're going. Like so far, I mean, that is not even close to where you're going. That is nowhere. Actually, you know what? Once I went over there, I realized that it is kind of close for some reason. Let's see if we can get over there real quick. I'll show you exactly what's going on. So there's actually this little thing in the world here. See this little pathway down here? This is here in the world. And I don't know if it's actually in the Mythic 0, but it allows you to basically, like, I mean, I don't know. It's weird, right? You can either go left or right here. I'm not really sure why you would do that. Let's just check what's actually over this way. I don't really know, but either way, you can do this. I mean, this is effectively allowing you to skip mobs too, right? Where does it even come out? Probably on the west side. Yeah. Comes out on the west side of the overflow. That's interesting. So I don't know. Maybe people will use this to their advantage. I don't really know. Frankly, I'm not really sure why they would. The trash in here is not. The thing is, uppers trash, whatever, the workshop's trash is extremely dangerous. There's very little of it, and what is there is extremely dangerous. Here, the trash is extremely easy, and there's a billion of it. So I don't know what count's gonna look like. Frankly, you know, putting that obelisk there is actually probably like a bit of a noob guide. Like to tell people that there's that route that you could take underground. I don't know if anybody would do it, but if you did, you could use the Spire to skip. Like all of this trash we're fighting right now by accident, I could have just skipped it by dragging the lieutenant from the Spire through the tunnel and over here, right? And then come out this side, kill the stuff, move on. But would I do that? I mean, do we need it? Do we need count that way? I don't know. And then the other problem here is, of course, the last two. Oh yeah, this is another thing. You spawn outside the dungeon, which obviously that's not going to work for Mythic Plus. That's just probably a bug though. But yeah, the big thing is that the last two are just kind of on either side of the suppression unit, the final boss, which I don't know. I don't know how I feel because it's not like it kind of looks like it's like Gore, but it's not, or not Gore. King's Rest. It looks like it's like King's Rest, but it's not because these are covered in mobs. Like this right one has like 5 different packs blocking it. I don't think there's any way to, unless maybe, the only thing I can think of is you could actually go behind those mobs this way. I don't know if that's even possible in this dungeon. I've never even tried any of this. So it's possible because that route that we just talked about, it actually brings you up right here. Comes underground, it goes right here. So you could actually get to this with only 1 extra pack, pull that, possibly use that, skip that to the other side, you know, go through these mobs, end up on this green side, and then maybe only kill 1 pack, grab this one, take this one, this could actually be huge, take this one through this pack here, which is definitely the hardest pack in the dungeon, in this half of the dungeon anyway. Take this, wow, yo, you know what? We might be onto something. So we'll leave the rest of speculation up to you guys. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or anything like that, let me know. Hopefully this map problem gets fixed. But otherwise, this was every location as of this week. I'm looking forward to trying this again next week and seeing if it changes. And if it does, we might make a follow-up. But either way, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.